the teaching and learning
Mm-hmm.
situation, and like what motivates you to do this, what how it is to learn in these tools and these technologies, and all sorts of stuff around there. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
So I guess I'll just start with you, Jan. Why did you decide to join the Manly Computer Pals? What was the inspiration for that?
Um, well, I'm looking down here because I've made some notes that
Excellent.
I'm going to refer to. Um, so I was, and excuse my cough because
Oh, that's all right.
I've got a cough. I've written a workbook,
Mm-hmm.
which I've been working on for a couple of years, and I used to have a tower, and was using Word,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to. I couldn't format it, and I went to Computer Pals to learn how to format it. Now, there were various things that took me there. Through word of mouth, I heard about it. A friend of mine had had lessons there. She'd been tutored in Apple, and she was just extremely positive about her use with Apple and the fantastic tutors that she'd had there. She loved it so much that she kept going after she stopped having tutors. She became a volunteer there. And to see her just talk about the group was an extremely positive experience for me because it was happening to her. She said it was a great group, such a good thing that these tutors her age had great skills and that were teaching her age, and she's turned 80. And she was having fun in the place, you know. She said it was only a small room they were in, but she said they were having so much fun. And so her mental health just was improved enormously by this whole experience. She made some new friends. Then they saw her, they guessed her skills, and they nabbed her to be on the committee. So she joined the voluntary committee and as the treasurer, and was helping them out with doing banking and stuff like that. Some of the people that she has met there have become lifelong friends. Now, when I was struggling with, so that's the background to, like word of mouth hearing about it. She had had an Apple, and she was tutored in Apple. And when she saw me struggling with Word, and I said, I don't know what to do, she encouraged me to join Manly Computer Pals and have some lessons. At the same time, I decided that I was going to go Apple, and so I bought a new computer. This was September last year. So I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it on something that I'm going to, a new application, if you like. So I bought a new computer, and then I had some lessons on how to format it. Well, firstly, I had a course last year from September, one term, where one of the tutors simply got me around, taught me the basics of the Apple and what it could do and everything. And then at the beginning of this year, I was lucky to obtain an extremely experienced Apple tutor, and I'm still with her. I've been with her all year. And as a result of what she has taught me, I have been able to format the book. I mean, the good news is it's completed. I've completed the book. and I had it printed this week. Now
Wow.
that's news even to Judy, isn't it, Judy?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So that's been quite an achievement for me. It's something that I've been working on for 3 years. And look, I'm not an academic. I have to say that now. I'm just a basic teacher who loves to teach children. And I have been teaching casual teaching for the last few years, and it was that sent me on this this workbook road. So to have that done and completed with the tutors from Computer Pals is testament to their worth, in my view. Fantastic. So I joined September last year. That's the when, and then that's the why.
Right. Wow.
Have you got any questions about that?
Well, quite a few. Did you experience like a similar? You talked about how your friend, you know, the process of learning something new was like really like that had a good impact on her like mental well-being and the state of her. Did you notice something similar when in that process? Because I'm sure you know, you obviously know a lot about learning something new. Did you have a similar experience with that?
Absolutely. I love learning new things though, and not everybody does have that urge. I'm really aware of that. You know, so a lot of people our age don't want to learn. That's too hard. They don't want to learn. They've done all that, you know. They say DT, you know, which is, I hate that expression because there's always something new you can learn. But that's my attitude, and that's her attitude. That's why we're such good friends, because we have that really positive attitude. But I know everybody's not like that. But it was an extremely positive. I mean, to help me, I was so excited to get to learn how to be able to format this thing and to get it to a point. And not only that, she helped me, my tutor helped me to set up a PowerPoint presentation too. Now, I learnt PowerPoint presentation as a teacher. I had, you know, but I hadn't used it for so long, I'd forgotten. So, you know, it was relatively easy, but I needed tutoring to do it. So she helped me set up and now I have a PowerPoint presentation which I can present to teachers on Zoom.
Excellent.
She taught me how to run a Zoom meeting, and during COVID that has been extremely useful because I've got friends who have, as we all do, luncheon groups, you know, when you retire, and there's groups you have lunch with, so we couldn't meet, and I said, well, why don't we have a Zoom meeting? And so my tutor taught me how to host a Zoom meeting, and I threw an email out and said, whoever can come. We had 8 people there, all our faces. It was so lovely to be able to catch up. I mean, Zoom has just been absolutely unbelievable, learning that skill alone, to feel comfortable with getting on and seeing people and having a chat to them on screen. I mean, that's just brand new to me and our group of, I mean, I'm 75, so all my school friends that I was with that day were 75. Some of them are turning 76 right now. So that skill in itself. Again, the mental health, the uplifting of people's mental health during that time. One of the girls had lost her husband only just at the beginning of the year, and to be able to check in on her and see her and talk with her face to face, and brilliant.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing.
It was better than an email or a phone call.
Yeah, that's what I've been interesting. You know, I've heard there are some people who say
I'll have a cup of tea.
there are some people who say, like, you know, there's other technologies that can connect it, but like there's also, I think it's important that everyone has the option to use all of them, you know, that we don't have to be just resigned to the phone call because I think it is important over long periods of time to be able to see someone face to face.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Another group the other day, my tennis group, we had a little face-to-face time. There were just 4 of us.
Mm.
We had face-to-face phone call.
Mm-hmm.
It's on our phone. That was fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them all yet.
Yeah. It's definitely a different experience than
Yes.
a regular phone call.
It is. And I think, horrid as though Zoom has been, I think it's opened up these other ways of seeing and talking to our friends, which we wouldn't have thought of before.
Mm.
I mean, technology would have introduced them too, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I just think we've been encouraged.
The situation has definitely,
put us in that situation where we just do it.
Yeah.
Because it's worthwhile.
Okay. Interesting. There's some just sort of things. Well, I suppose, Judy, do you have any comments on that situation? The process of sort of teaching either. I'm not sure if you teach Jan particularly or more generally. How is the process for you? What is it? What are the rewards to it, like emotionally, but also like what's the day-to-day sort of like as well?
Well, there's a number of different scenarios when you're actually tutoring seniors, and they're all not as interested as Jan is. They need to have a purpose of coming to our sessions and wanting to learn. If they've got a purpose, then they're as keen as. But if their children or grandchildren have prompted them to go because their children or grandchildren haven't the time to show them how to navigate their devices or to understand the terminology even, then they are sort of more forced to learn. But it's really incredible how everyone has their own set of values as far as technology goes, senior-wise, because it is a group thing. If your group that you belong to is all using technology, then you feel that they tend to want to learn because they need to communicate. They don't want to be isolated. So they will join, for argument's sake, Zoom, a video conferencing app, if Zoom is what it is. Or they might use WhatsApp. Or they might use whatever technology as far as video conferencing goes. And it depends on their peer group. Then they will join that sort of technology. So it's really a broad spectrum for seniors. They've not learnt, the seniors we're talking about are really, we say 55 plus, but really it's older than that age bracket now. I would have to say it's 65 plus.
Yeah.
Or 60 plus, because it's that generation that haven't been brought up so much in their working life with technology. So they're being introduced a foreign language. That's what it is, really. And it's people like us, or like me and my age bracket, and I'm still in my early 70s, so I'm teaching seniors how to use technology. But I've had an interest because I've been a graphic designer for years, and I was very, very fortunate. I ran a design studio, and we were introduced to Apple Macs back in the good old days when businesses were not using technology like Macs, and the ad agency I was with introduced Macs, and they were learning, and I was fortunate to be learning on the ground level. So how good was that? And I didn't know at that stage that technology was going to be what it was as far as designs, and we had to learn. We had to keep up the pace in advertising and marketing, and consequently I became very well versed in both in Apple Macs and also in Windows, like in PCs and all the different programs that preceded that, and we just had to, and videoing, and it was just part of the course.
Yeah.
So So as far as my background goes and what I'm doing now, it just seems to be a natural progression, teaching seniors or teaching people my age bracket. In fact, I think a lot of the seniors know a lot more than what what the Z and the X and Y generations know. They only know what they need to know too, you know, and it's like that with everyone. There's all the apps now, and the software is so complex. They're introducing more and more and more, so that there is very little time for the average person, whatever age bracket, to learn the ins and outs of all the software and all the apps. So you only use probably a 16th of what is available to us now. And we just, and if you've got a bit of time, you might just continue learning a little bit more, because you may want to be introduced, you may want to know more, so you may, you know, just it's a lifelong learning process, and a lifelong learning process of learning devices and being more skilled and learning and like I've noticed, the biggest problem with any of our new students or our student seniors is the terminology. The terminology is foreign to them. Once they grasp that, and then the next thing is learning how to actually navigate any device, and changing from one platform to another is a big consideration too. We found that if they're learning on an Apple Mac and they then go to a Windows, everything's maybe on the opposite side or in different places, different terminology, a different way, you know, and security is another thing, whether you need to, you know, I mean, there's a lot of different considerations when you're using technology. It's not just one size fits all. And so I think that we're very, very fortunate that we're living today with the technology, but we need to focus a lot more on how secure our data is, which is a big consideration, and seniors are very concerned with that, and they're very vulnerable too.
And very rightly so.
Yeah, and we try, and we as tutors need to explain that to them, but we don't want them to become frightened. That's the important thing. You can, if it's stressed too much, the security about data protection, then seniors become much more frightened than maybe your generation and your peer group, because they haven't grown up with it. And we're introducing to them a new language, a new way of navigating, a new way of keeping connected, and also how to keep secure. It's a big ask and especially as you get older, your learning curve becomes your learning span is shortened, and perhaps you have a lot of health issues, and so you can't really focus on the learning side of it. You're sort of more focusing on what it can do to assist you as a person in the digital world. Because you've got other, like when you're retired, and that's what you've got other interests. You know, you want, you know, your other interests could be playing cards, but then because of Zoom and because of the lockdown and because of all the different, because of this coronavirus, we've been able to focus on using Zoom to play games, and cards could be one of the examples. So rather than having to be one-on-one or person-to-person or group-to-group physically, we can now do it online using Zoom or similar. So it's opened up technology has opened up a wide range, a big scope, but only a few. and it's not 100% of seniors are able to cope with it, and it's the
No,
and
right.
it's like a 50%. I would even say it's more than 50% that are finding it difficult to cope. Seniors.
We've done this is we're collecting a lot of data on this and researching sort of what data has been found, as well as like anecdotal stuff from people like yourself. And yeah, what we've seen is that a lot of studies have shown that about 80% or so struggle in some way, shape or form with
What age group would that be, Max?
Pardon?
Sorry, what age group?
That's 65 plus.
Plus, yeah, okay. Yeah.
A lot of the data is around the 65 plus. That's usually how they break it down.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about that too, now that we're
Sure.
there?
Of course.
Have you looked at what percentage don't use it at all?
What percentage don't use it at all?
Don't use
I think
it
it's
at
very
all.
difficult to I've tried to find that, but it's very difficult to pinpoint what that means exactly, because it's almost very difficult not to use any form of technology at all today.
Yeah, they'd have to use their phone.
Yeah, so but it's like it's more, so that's why a lot of the data is less about like how many specifically use it and more about how many feel comfortable using it, because then they can take a demographic really easily and just say how comfortable are you with it, and that's much easier to find than it is like specifically how many people aren't using it.
Yeah.
But yeah, one other interesting, actually, now that we're talking about data, one of the interesting things that we found when we first thought like why this might be an interesting news story is that there's a lot of data to show. For example, we've been reading a lot of papers by this a paper called the Digital Inclusion Index, which is a sort of paper which every year sort of collects data about the different demographics of digital inclusion around Australia. And so that's people in regional areas versus metropolitan, people in different economic situations, and people in different age groups. And what they found is that for the past, as long as they've been collecting data, so for like longer than half a decade, about 6-7 years, there's been a steady increase, which, as I'm sure is the result of your work, Judy, and all your peers. There's a steady increase of accessibility, skills, and affordability of technology, and so that's progressing upwards. But what the interesting thing is that we found is that the difference between the gap between the skill and the accessibility and the affordability for 65 pluses versus the average is staying exactly the same. It's not narrowing at all. Basically, what it seems to us is that the 65 plus demographic, because of work like Man and Computer Pals, they're rising in their ability, but that also the ceiling of what's expected is also rising because everyone else is at the same time, type thing. And so the gap is still there, and it's really not narrowing at all, at least over the last about 8 years. So that's, I would wonder what your perspective on that is, this idea that maybe improvements are being made, but that because it's like chasing, it's not like chasing a finish line, it's like chasing a moving finish line sort of thing.
Yeah,
Well,
go on. You go. No, Jan, your thoughts.
Well, it's moving all in the same direction, because each year, new 65-year-olds know more than me. Even 10 years after, you know, look, people were using computers. So do you see what I mean? I mean, the 65's at the bottom of the stairs. Well, the next lot of 65 next year are going to know more. So there's another group at the bottom who know more than them, probably, and the next group down. So as we go up the stairs, our groups, you know, we're still learning, but the ones who are turning 65 behind us, they've all had a lot more experience in their work. You know, for example, in the design the industry that Judy was talking about. She was lucky to capture that time. 10 years after that, they'll know a heap more. In my teaching career, as I say, even though I learnt how to do a PowerPoint presentation, the time to sort of sit down and do it and work it all out to present to students wasn't applicable in my field, because my subject was interactive. So, but 10 years, a teacher's 10 years down the track, it would have been second nature to them to throw photographs up on and to do a peer present. It would be part of their preparation, whereas it wasn't part of my preparation for lessons. I'm talking about preparation for your teaching lessons.
Is that what you mean, Max? Do you mean that, Max? You're saying that everything's moving at the same gap.
I'm just saying that as much as like every generation knows more, the expectation of what's needed is kind of also growing. Whereas, so 10 years past, a teacher might have been expected to know how to put up, I don't know, a single image on a digital board.
Yeah, you're spot on, Max. That's exactly right. Because
then now it's video, and then next it'll be VR, and the sort of thing is just like, it's interesting that you're like, there's this thing where we need to have maybe a different way of like including people from the beginning type thing, because if we're just trying to chase something, it's always going to be receding forward in front of us type thing. There's always new things coming, and in that way there's always seems to be people left behind because they weren't 20, 30 working when the thing came about type thing.
Yeah, but that's in every industry, Max. I mean, that's not just technology. That's wherever you go. If you don't have the building blocks to start with, then you struggle throughout, you know. So it's like you know, you go to uni to learn, like you do school first, and then you might do tertiary education, and then it advances to the next, to the next, to the next. So, I mean, it's like, I think you're not chasing your tail. I think now, everyone, it's like now, for example, everyone needs to know how to use QR codes. And they need to have a digital device to be able to use that. So seniors need to be part of that equation. They need to buy even a digital device to be able to go into a restaurant or visit Woolies or any of the supermarkets. Or, I mean, they still can sign in, but to be part of it's more necessary now. But that's what you're saying, that, we're advancing all the time. I remember years ago, I would just teach people how to, format a Word document, you know, center, left, you know, and now everyone knows how to do that. I mean, you wouldn't even think about spending time teaching anyone that. It's second nature, yes, and you know, like, yes, every year we're progressing more, and the need to know more is what they're asking. You know, like Jan, she needs to put a book together. I mean, years ago, you know, to get a manuscript, digitize a manuscript and put it together would be a big drama, and getting photos and everything and sourcing them, you know, and scanning them and all that. Now you don't have to do, you know, that you're just a few steps forward. But I know what you're saying, Max. Yeah, we need to know more, and we're teaching different things to a more advanced group of people. It's just, that's the movement in technology, and QI and all that, you know. Well, it's also like, you know, like all these, and everything like that is important now that we get to know,
And I'll just give an example of what I think we're talking about. Part of my teaching was, I used to teach PE, Max, which is personal development, health and physical education. So the health part we'd have an inside lesson for the pellets and development health part, and then the PE was outside. So we'd be teaching a health lesson, for example, about, let's just say, the chemicals in drugs, a drug of some sort, for instance. This is high school, right? And at the end of it, if we were looking at something that was sort of in the news, which we used to try and do, I used to try and do, things that were explore the drugs that their peers were dying from, for example, and look at the chemicals. And I'd say to them, you need to remember, you need to know that what I'm teaching, what I'm telling you today is all the knowledge that I have today, and tomorrow it could change. So tomorrow, don't come to me and say you were wrong, miss. Today, I'm telling you as much as I know, because daily, on the news tonight, they might have found, because we've got such wonderful research, medical research happening in this country, it could change and they might have found another cure or whatever. And I think that's the way to look at everything, every learning situation, really. Nothing stays the same. It could change tomorrow.
Yeah, and a good example of that too, Jan and Max, is when I was in publishing, we published educational books, which went to all the unis, and over a period of time, it all started to go online. People didn't want, like, the students no longer carried all these textbooks, heavy textbooks. They learnt online, and we accommodated that with our publishing house, and another good thing was we could update everything much faster than printing it and publishing it. We would publish. We could just in real time update an online manuscript, so students automatically knew that what they were getting today. We didn't have to wait for the second or third edition. They were getting that second or third edition today, not tomorrow. So technology is there's really good things about technology, and seniors know that too. They can now learn how to get a lot of information. Dr. Google might be one example, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they know how to. Like, seniors now know, once we teach them, that Google is an avenue where they can get information. I mean, fake news is another thing that you have to be careful with. But this is all these things that they're learning, and we're learning, and it's not just us learning. It's all new to most people. Social media, all the different social media. How all the good comes with the bad. Bad comes with the good. So
absolutely,
it's really hard. It's very difficult to police anything that is. I would have to say, technology is in a transitional stage still. It's still in the developmental era, and a lot of the and politicians are trying to catch up to put into place companies that use our data, like Google and Apple and Microsoft and all of them, for various reasons, and for advertising. Yeah, all that, there needs to be, and the world is catching up. It's not just Australia. It's a catch-up situation. And so seniors, a lot of seniors are catching up a little bit behind the rest of us, but the rest of the population, but they're getting there. I mean, they're forced to get there. Take example, MyGov. You need to be on MyGov to be for Medicare and all the different. They need to fill out forms online. They need to remember passwords or have a password manager. I mean, it's all part of now what seniors are being introduced to.
And yet, Judy, there are still some people who don't have a computer.
Yes. And that's that's a small percentage now. And if the people without a computer or a device, they're the ones that will resist, are all resistant in everything. Actually,
they've got a phone, but not a computer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of us can't do without our mobile phones anymore. I mean,
No, but I think the aged community has caught up very quickly there. I mean, it's again, I don't know, it might be the educated, not majority. I have no idea whether it is or not. But I was very surprised when phones first started coming out, seeing aged people, much older than me. I mean, this is when I was 50. Seeing older people with silver white hair getting out quite confidently talking on their phones.
Yeah.
And I went and had a little course up at Apple at Chatswood. And there were heaps of people older than me, as old and older than me. And that was only last year.
Yeah.
You know, so, but as I say, I mean, I don't know whether you've got any data on that either, but my brother is an example of one who he ran a business. He's 80, and he ran a business. No computers, nothing. It was the old typewriters and arch filing systems. So he doesn't want to learn a computer, but he's got a mobile phone which doesn't use very much. But I mean, there's an example of. I mean, he's the same age as my friend, both 80, and what a huge gap in difference of what they want to do with their life. I mean, if he lives for another 16 years, well, let's say 10, 10 more years without being in touch with all this stuff. But he's not the only one.
No.
But that's very right. We've noticed that, Max. The age. Look, we're getting far less seniors needing to know how to use devices. We used to have, like, say 10 years ago, there was a great influx. They, so, and they were a lot younger, 55, 50s. Now, 10 years ahead, you're getting 75 pluses. So the age bracket, like when you call seniors are getting older and older and older, wanting to learn from organisations like us. We are finding it difficult to get enough seniors wanting to learn. They already know how to use their devices because they're growing up with it. In one step. Well, they're not growing up with it, but they've been introduced to it in one form or another. There's no such thing as, very few 50-year-olds need to come to organisations like us. But 10 years ago, they did.
Yeah.
So
that's the shift.
That's a big shift. So isolation is amongst 80 pluses, I would say. Technology isolation, and they're people that are either they're people in nursing homes, I would suggest, or and that's where, and they don't have the desire to learn, only because their peer group doesn't know either. So they're not feeling isolated. They're quite comfortable. They're feeling isolated if they do use technology.
They're happy to sit down and read the Sydney Morning Herald from page 1 to the end every day.
And not online.
I'm talking about my brother, and as an example, and I'm glad I've got him to share because that's what he does every day. He loves his television. He loves his paper. He doesn't read books. He's happy as Larry. you know. He's
And
got,
does
got
he
his
find
garden.
that? Sorry, go ahead.
He's got his garden. I mean, he's a gardener.
Mm-hmm.
He breeds birds. You know, he's happy as Larry. He doesn't want other things. Doesn't want technology in his life.
Okay.
He's never had it, and he's not going to get it now. And then there must be other people. Now, he lives in his own home up in Port Stephens. There must be others as healthy and well and fit as him, same age. Feeling the same thing.
I can't see how they can do without it, because nowadays,
I can't either.
you know, how do you do without emails, or, you know, they get emails from various different organisations. But anyway,
that's his choice.
That's
his.
Yeah, but there are many people like that, Jan, of that age. Yeah. But they seem to manage.
I don't need that.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a bit sad, because as an educator, and you would feel this too, I just feel sorry for people who can't take that step forward into new things. But anyway, that's it. Can I just ask, Max, there were a couple of other questions on that you gave Judy.
Yeah.
Are you interested in those? You asked.
Yes. Sorry, we've gotten a bit. You guys have been such great answers that I've gotten kind of drilled down the rabbit hole. Yeah. So basically, the critical thing that we're looking at in sort of like how we're like breaking down our assessment of this situation is we're looking at the issues and solutions in sort of like three key areas, which is the design of technology, social infrastructure, so particularly sort of like how much government's doing and how much they should be doing, how much they need to be doing, and also then sort of like the situation of like sort of societal understanding, like what are the prejudices, what are the sort of preconceptions that people have of this community. No, it's okay, Jay.
Sorry, I got this awful cold.
So maybe if we can start with that first one, this idea that how do you think, because we talk with technologists and people who sort of work in this area of like advocating for better design that like suits everyone, that sort of has something that is accessible for everyone. What is your perspective on sort of like right now how the general technology designed by the big companies, whether they be Apple or Google or whoever, how accessible are they to diverse groups like, say, the elderly?
I don't know, something with Apple, well, I can't even, they're not easy.
They're not easy?
No.
No. Any particular things that you noted when you were...
There's something that I can't actually do that I used to be able to do on Word, for instance. You used to take a document and let's just say I'm writing a story, right? And I think, oh, this sentence is better up there. I kind of just do it and swap around. I want to select that and just print that out. Let's just say I want to select and print. I can't do that on my Apple because it doesn't show a selection.
Yes, you can, but
I should find your own.
Yeah.
You can show me.
But the thing is then...
It just doesn't seem as easy.
Yeah, maybe it needs better design then to make it more intuitive.
Yeah, and the other thing, I use the little copyright symbol all the time. Now, I know it's easy, but I shouldn't have to type in copyright to find it. Do you know what I mean? There should be an insert. On the insert thing, I should be able to just find it quickly and easy as that and stick it in because I use it all the time. So that little frustrations like that, I think, are there for me as a new Apple learner.
Right.
It were easy on the other thing. On Word.
How about you, Judy? Do you notice anything generally, like specifics or general, about sort of difficulties in design where something...
Absolutely. Just in real time today, yesterday, the day before, it's not just seniors, but everyone's finding it difficult to download their medical certificate onto the platforms that they're meant to. it's not working in most cases on different, very, very difficult. From, you know, so, you know, what is it, the two, you know, how you have to be vaccinated, like double vaccinated certificates. Well, there's not, most people have said they've had a lot of problems doing it. So that is a typical example that whoever's designed how to do that needs to get a rap on over the knuckles, because it hasn't been an easy process. And I was, and I've been talking to a number of people that still haven't got it on their mobiles, because the New South Wales app, a health app that it only accepts some of the vaccination certificates, and not all, I'm not sure whether it depends on the system, you know, the iOS system, or the system they're using. But anyway, it's a big drama, and that could very well be improved.
Can I just add to that, Judy?
Yeah.
For example, I had to have a COVID test yesterday, and they told me last night the result was there. So I went yesterday morning for the test. Now, I tried to get into it, and it gave me several things to do, and it just kept going out all the time. Now, I just could not get my results. I tried again this morning. Go in this way, try this, do that. Put the reference number, a code number that you got at I didn't get a code number. You know, so there are a whole lot of things around that, and I still don't know whether I'm positive or negative.
See, this is what see, Max,
that's one.
That's a way of very difficult to navigate. Can you imagine seniors that are not...
So is my gov.
I found it very difficult as well. Like it was a whole process, because I didn't have online Medicare, so I had to set up countless things. I had to set up Medicare online. I had to set up thing, and I had to link it. I ended up having to call them. I had to call them. It couldn't be done online. I had to.
Well, can you imagine how hard it is for us as tutors to teach our seniors? And we have been doing that, but it's been like a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's really
one of my things. What you changes, you ask what could the designers do to make the process of learning tech easier for you, make sites easier to access, was my answer that I wrote, because they're just not. Yeah. And all that government stuff you say, Medicare, I mean, if we could go in and it could be easy, you wouldn't mind it. But it gives me a headache.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, then you don't go and do those things that you should be doing.
But can you imagine? But Max, can you imagine a senior sitting on the phone ringing up like you? I mean, you probably had to wait 100. Like, I don't know how.
Very long.
Yeah.
Very long.
An hour at least.
And I slipped and I hung up.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I know, that happens, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I'll give up too. I had to give up this morning because I had to go and have some breakfast. To get ready for this, you know what I mean? And I've got all day. What do other people do?
Yeah, but so, Max, I mean, that's a tip. Look, there's so many examples like that, you know.
It's the government ones, actually. It's the government ones.
Often, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. But, you know...
you go into Uber or something like that, it's easy. They give you a code, boom, you know. This is done, boom.
Oh, the other thing, though, I've noticed is that often you get a verification code sent to your mobile, so or to an email when you're logging into something. You know, I wonder whether that is difficult too. You know,
it is.
That you know.
Sometimes it disappears before you can remember it.
Yeah.
Or before you've got. I mean, do you need to have a piece of paper to write it down quickly?
Well, you don't have to do that. You can go to to the app to have a look at it again. But see, this is
yeah.
what I mean,
I
Max.
want to do
But it's not. Yeah, it's not.
It-
not easy. It's not.
No.
They don't make it easy.
It's not easy, no. So they're those two things of, you know, present day difficult.
Yeah,
You know,
every
that-
day.
and even, I mean, I don't know, like, there's millions of things I think you come up with that I've forgotten half of them, but, you know,
Yeah.
you think to yourself, oh, God, you know, what a drama this is, you know, like,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
the routine
that's
is, and really, I don't know about anyone else, but I know that if I'm going to do a process online or talk to someone or do something, I know that I'm going to have a free time of at least half an hour because, you know, in case it doesn't work, you know, in case I can't get my head around it, yeah.
Absolutely right.
You know, and
Except I give an hour.
yeah, and then you go, oh look, I'll give up and do it another time.
Another time, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, so it's, yeah, technology still needs to be improved a lot to make it a lot more simple. And maybe also, maybe the keys on, I notice seniors, some of them have, like a lot of them have shaking, like they're shaking and all that. You know, that I know that you know, there's accessibility tools like apps that you can use now on these various different devices, which are great, but they don't often work either as well as they should, you know. So maybe all that could be improved, but you know, yes, and it's good now that you can read, if you're hard of hearing, you can sort of read. You know, a lot of websites now have that accessibility for reading the text. So it's all happening, but as I said earlier, I think we're still in such a transitional stage with technology, you know, like, you know.
It's in its infancy. That's what they always say.
Infancy, yeah. That's the word, yeah. And do you know the other thing? It's the young people, young blokes who are designing the technology. They should have the cross section. They should have a cross section of people designing technology. So before it goes out to the public, you know.
That's exactly what we've heard from all of this. From we've talked to sort of experts in this field who sort of advocate for that, and that's sort of a part of that. And like, it's not massive, but like where they do it, and that's exactly what they say. Like, they have to be, more people need to be like consulted with when designing, and that's like it can be, that could be like about software, like it could be about like a web page or something, or it could be physical, like a literal device of a tablet or a thing, and like having options, because right now it seems like, because everything wants to be faster, everything needs to be you know, better, that at some point it's like there isn't the option for people that want to just take it slow, that want to have not quite such precise points where you have to tap exactly right there to get it right type thing. And it's fine that that's an option, that's what it is, but like the other option should be available is what they're saying.
Yeah.
One thing that I can say has improved, or if it hasn't, it needs to. The first computer course, you asked about the history, first computer course I ever did was at university, and we had a book. We had a lecturer who just sort of said, there's the book. And in the book, and so it was self-learning, really. And in the book, it didn't say, like, every second, my hand would go up and I'd say, I don't understand what that means. Because it was put together by a computer expert who had no idea that I didn't know. I'd come from a typewriting background, not a computer background. So it didn't have, like, I didn't know whether, it didn't say drag mouse. It didn't say click left. it didn't say click right. It just said, so I don't know what the words were. I've just got these in my head now, but you were supposed to go into, it would say, let's say, poems. Go into poems, okay? How do I go into poems? Do I drag? Do I type it in? There were three things. Do I type in poems? Is there something on the screen that I've missed that I can click?
They assume we know all that.
There was
the basic.
So much assumption. I said, I need to write this book. I need to rewrite this instruction book. He got a bit frustrated with me, but I was able to show him that this means nothing to me. Go in no knowledge. You can't. You've got to talk about. If I go into a restaurant, I've only eaten with chopsticks. You need to tell me what that is, what that sort of thing with the prongs is.
Yeah, what the tripe is.
It's as basic as that.
Yeah.
Because you go in with absolutely no knowledge. So yeah, that's where I find. But I mean, I'm sure that's easier today. But if they're writing programs that don't have drag mouse to such and such, if they want to get around a site or whatever, you still don't know.
Yeah.
Is it type in, or is it drag mouse, or is it click left or click right?
Or
No,
use
that's an excellent example.
Or use 3 fingers on your trackpad.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
Or Alt Shift 4. What does that mean? Do I type in Alt Shift 4? Press Alt Shift, keep them held down. Then now hit 4 with the other hand.
Like little things where they say like the old like idea of like a mouse. Like I know a lot of people still use mice, but like they'll say right click on something. But obviously on a trackpad there is no right click.
No, that's right.
You use 2 fingers, but it doesn't say that. It says right click.
Okay. So these are the changes that are happening if you've still got a mouse. I still use a mouse.
No, I use a mouse too, but just the idea that someone might not, and then suddenly.
Yeah. Well, I don't use a mouse. I don't use a mouse on my MacBook Pro, but I do on my desktop computer. So yeah, like it's just like look, it's in its infancy,
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
I really think the answer, Max, is like you said, get a whole group of different people, generations or whatever, do a test market of whatever, a device or a program or whatever, then send it out, a beta version out to the public and see how it comes back,
Yeah.
I think it's just probably middle-aged or young men have been designing all these things for too long and not considering other users,
They become all inside their own head, and they don't realize there's a bigger world than that.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of your time. What is your time? How do you
That's
have?
it's been an hour now. Is that enough?
Oh, sorry.
No.
I did have one sort of last little a question sort of thing.
I've got another little anecdote for you too.
Okay, excellent. Do you want to go ahead with that first?
Okay. Whenever. Okay, so when I was teaching, and I gave up teaching, I don't know how long, 25 years ago or something. 20 years ago. We were still taking the roll for each class by hand. Okay, so I retired, and that was also happening. So 5 years ago, I went back to do some casual teaching, but in primary school, right? So I go into year 1. This is my 3rd day of casual teaching, and I was a bit lazy. I didn't go into the site and find out what they're doing or anything. And so I find that in this particular school, the roll was online, was on the computer. I had no idea. So I said, I know. I said, okay, turn the computer on. I know, miss. I'll do it. So this 6-year-old comes and he knows all the buttons to press to get the roller, and he showed me how to. He said, "See that yellow square? Then that means that she's not here today." Boom, 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 and he showed me how to do it. This kid's 6.
Mm.
So they have no judgment. They had no judgment of me that I didn't know, and it was such a good thing. The interaction with this child, and they know how to use the computers in their rooms, and it's wonderful to see. So, as a contrast from my going to university, that was 1996, by the way. I was at university. To what's happening in 2018 in the school system was just fantastic. You just do it all online, and you don't even have to, you still call the names, but there it is. You press send and it goes through to the office. So, and the year ones, my point was too, that me as a mature, in 1996, how old was I, mature woman, in my 40s, going and knowing nothing at university now, and this year 6 kid now, today, that many years later, is just fantastic. So something good's happening in the learning, what's happening in schools, I can tell you that, it's fabulous.
And that's interesting, that idea that you talk about how there was no sort of like judgment type thing from them. Is that different from what you see in the wider world? Is that a contrast to something?
So what it was when I was growing up, yeah, you would expect the teacher to know everything, and they don't. They just love you. Mind you, that's primary. Primary kids just love you. They just love you, don't they? Even if they've never seen you before, they treat you as a good old friend. Don't miss. It's lovely. The lovely attitude amongst kids in the schools these days, the primary kids, are fabulous. Wow. There is no judgment. They've grown up in a totally multicultural, non-judgmental society, which I didn't.
Right.
That's fabulous to see. Acceptance of non-knowledge was not an issue for them. They just accepted it.
Do you think older people are as good at that? Like people maybe between my age and yours today, are they sort of receptive to this idea that people are learning and that they don't sort of fall into stereotypes of like putting people in boxes and assuming that they won't learn or they can't learn? Is that something you notice while you were going through this process or before the process, that people had assumptions about your skill level or your ability to learn?
Sorry, what process are you talking about?
Well, the process of sort of going to classes, starting classes and...
Oh, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah?
Sorry, I wasn't...
Sorry, this is a bit
could you just ask again, like the process
of
going...
I just suppose, do you sense that the wider society is fairly receptive and like eager to sort of people of your generation to learn this new skills, or are there judgments out there? Do you find that people make assumptions about what you can learn or about what and that sort of thing?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not out in the community much. I mean, I don't talk to people about these things anymore. I'm not. I go into a school as a casual for a day. I've got to know quite a few of the staff members in the schools around here, but I don't get into discussions about technology with them.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I really don't have any.
No, so how about you, G? Do you sense? What's your your thoughts on sort of like how the wider community views sort of the learning and teaching of senior Australians? Is it something they're all on board with, or is there sort of some judgments, or is there some stereotyping going on about sort of like what can be learned and type things like that?
You are put in boxes. I've noticed a lot. The wider community certainly puts seniors in boxes that they can't learn, or you're invisible. You go into JV Hi-Fi, for argument's sake, and you know, I mean, I experience it quite frequently, and by technology, by devices, and they treat you as like, speak to you slowly, and you know, and they are quite surprised when you're asking for a device or something to find out whether it can do this and that, and they're taken aback when I might know a little bit more than they do. So the majority, yes, you know, you walk in a store and you are put in boxes. Yeah, if you go in at your age, probably the attendants are your age, so they think, oh yeah, okay, you know, he knows what he's talking about. I think I can offer this to him, and that you. So yeah, that's the other difficulty that we do face as seniors. That perhaps we don't get offered all the advice that we could quite easily comprehend and use and pass on. You know, and as I said earlier, our even our children, grandchildren have that attitude. They don't have enough time. They're too busy. They want to get on with their own life. We take too long to understand. You know.
Which we don't really, but never mind.
Yeah, but it's the thought. It's the idea. It's like it's the barrier that's like made by people, which isn't there. It's just like in their heads type thing.
And disabilities is the same thing. Only now are we becoming more understanding of people with disabilities in wheelchairs or hard of hearing or whatever they have. You know, like we're building buildings and retail outlets to accommodate wheelchairs, and then so I think again it's all in its infancy. You know, like the world is becoming smaller because of technology. So we're all understanding how communities and the, you know, like it's all the age brackets are not quite as we shouldn't be in boxes because of all these different things, like, you know, that's what I think, you know. And I do notice it, definitely still notice it, to answer your question. Yeah.
Okay.
So you wanted to say something to us?
Pardon?
You had one more thing you wanted to say. Right.
Oh, I think we kind of covered it basically in that it was mostly to do with that. Thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous with it.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to hear that your book is getting published, and that it's all done with, and that you've sort of found your success in the.
Well, I'm not sure. Is this being printed at this
I've been
stage?
printed. Sorry.
It's still in a draft form, but thank you very much for your enthusiasm.
Okay. It's exciting though. That's
It is. It's been quite an achievement. Thank you.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, thanks, Max.
Thanks, Max.
I'm really glad you sent us that email. I mean, I don't know if this is going to work for you, our interview, but I hope.
Trust me, it's been excellent. It's been truly excellent.
Okay.
Can I ask you what you're going to do with that?
Well, we're writing an article, and we're also one of us is a sociology student, and so we're probably going to also at some point do it into a paper that's more of a less journalistic side and more of a sort of research side of things.
So can we get copies of whatever you do? Yeah.
Of course.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Send it through to Judy, and
I will.
Yeah.
Course.
And when's all this going to come into fruition? Like next year or this year or what?
This year. Certainly this year.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure the exact time schedule, but definitely.
Oh, good luck with all of that.
Yeah, good luck. I hope you do. Hope you do really well too, Max.
Thank you.
You're wonderful.
It's been really interesting researching. It's been really interesting talking to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for researching it.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Nice to
Okay.
see young people taking interest.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Thank you
Okay.
again.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.